As you can see, it's data to action with a subtitle, The Real Deal in Business Intelligence. Because since the beginning of time, everybody knew that business intelligence final objective was to support decision making and was to support the strategic process and the actions in the field. But what I've learned, and I'm checking if this works. No, I have a problem with screen. I seem to have control, but there's not very much happening here. Huh? What's up?
The slides?
Yeah, I seem to have the ball, but the ball's not doing very much.
Try clicking on the presentation and then using the space bar, see if that works.
Now it's working. Okay, so anyway, the objective of this webinar is very simple. It's very straightforward. I'd say that it's an understatement to say that not all BI projects are successful. So we'll look at some of the causes, try to formulate a few solution strategies, and check on the theories which they are based on. BI implementation failure as the first part. It's not a matter of technology, that is clear. We have mature modeling techniques, we have advanced analytic capabilities, we have massive parallel processing machines, we have pre-installed appliances, we have all the stuff we need to produce good results, so technology is not at all an issue. Just on what I learned in over 20 years of practice, and it's the lack of thorough business analysis and the lack of vision in the presentation and communication methods that leads to underutilization of the BI potential, which is in the data, it's in the visuals, and it's in the management of context. I'll give you 4 simple use cases just as an example. If you take executive dashboards, have we ever measured the impact of the presentation methods on the C-level decision-making process? If you think of simplifying complex information as a second use case, what level of simplification is then appropriate for each type of decision maker? Another aspect is, how do we reduce lengthy information? How do we produce the correct headlines and storify lengthy stuff? And finally, of course, how do we turn all these data into action? And what exactly are we modeling and presenting? Are we presenting prejudice? What is the level of confidence of the data? Is there a dark number we haven't measured? So there's a lot of questions that lead to, well, BI failure. So, problem statement here. Gartner throws up a number between 70 and 80% that BI projects fail. Say that that is a bit larger because I think this is in the eye of the beholder. So what I mean is the client's perception of the project is very determining the success rate. So if the expectations, for instance, are badly managed, then you get, of course, a high percentage. But maybe the project itself delivered beautiful deliverables. All this is a bit unclear. So we did a few of our own research on these different projects we managed. We did surveys. We also did analysis of projects we didn't manage, but we coached hands-on. And what we found was that there's a serious mismatch between users, designers, builders, and analysts. And this leads to an underutilization of what is often a costly infrastructure. Let's start with a few contextual aspects. For instance, the decision-making situation. I think this slide should be on some people's desktop as a screensaver. And why is that? Well, the quality of decision-making often depends on the decision-making culture and not just on the data. Not just on the data itself, not on the quality, nor on the timeliness of the delivered information. You can have the best BI analysts, the best designers, builders, and analytical WizKids, but if you are in the lower right-hand quadrant of this matrix, in the politics quadrant, you have a serious chance of project failure. And unfortunately, only between 20 and, let's say, 15 and 25% of all projects reach the calculation stage. Other than the decision-making matrix of the previous slide, this is what I call the decision-making DNA. It's namely the power distance index, which is culturally determined. This is an example of the PDI compared between Belgium and the Netherlands For those who are not very strong at geography, these are two adjacent countries in Europe. What we see is there are striking differences. Belgian organizations are far more leaning towards hierarchy in their interactions, and they are quite macho in decision making. It's like, I'm the boss and I say what goes and goes not, you know. And compare that to a culture for discussing and reiterating decisions and allowing for dissidence in Dutch organizations. And by the way, it's proving itself that this makes the Dutch organizations far better adapted to the network peer-to-peer economy than the Belgian economy, which is a lot more rigid. I always come back to what I call a value-free BI definition, because there are many good BI definitions, but some are a bit vendor-oriented. So today, I think, on the basis of what we know today, it's a broad category of applications, technologies for gathering, storing, analyzing, and providing access to data to help enterprise users make better business decisions. This includes the activities of decision support systems, query and reporting, online analytical processing, statistical analysis, forecasting, and data mining. And as I say at the bottom of this slide, it can be mission critical and integral to an enterprise operation or occasional to meet a special requirement. It can be enterprise-wide or local to one division, department, or project, and it can be centrally initiated or driven bottom-up by user demand. Now, this definition tries to make abstraction from technology and subcategories that will probably converge over time or change. So it's a systematic collection and preparation of data to provide management, employees, and other stakeholders with meaningful information. And if you combine that with rich knowledge of the organization, it improves the effectiveness of the organization's strategy process. And by strategy, well, strategy is not, what I mean by strategy is not the second one. It's not the military aspect. It's more like a method or a plan chosen to bring about the future. Because if you strip this definition from the military connotations, find out that in business your competitors may be allies in a joint struggle to enlarge the market or keep other competitors at bay. A friendly supplier may one day become your competitor, just as your best client may do so. So what I mean is, there are fewer lines of demarcation, as is in the case in military concepts. So it's simply a method or a plan. This planning aspect later on. I don't know if you know this guy, but this is Yogi Berra. He was very famous for very funny quotes, which he didn't always realize they were funny. So when he explained the itinerary to his house, he wanted to explain that either way was good to reach his house. The same goes for strategy management. Whether you work your way from the top to the bottom, or both ways, you will always end up with a plan, a positioning stance based on the way your organization sees the world and the business. And while you're executing the plan, changes will be necessary to respond to unforeseen events. Some things like culture and posture, which is your organization's attitude towards the world, will change a lot slower than the plans or the ploys you're making and executing. And that is why it is so important to understand the decision-making DNA of an organization to position your BI architecture and your projects in an optimum way. It's a simple exercise. You take your process blocks, you look at the input and transformation and output chain, and then you determine the process indicators that you deem relevant. Recombining these into key performance indicators or KPIs by dividing, multiplying, adding, or subtracting, that